Amusement parks are supposed to be places for fun and relaxation for the entire family, but there's always a creepy vibe to them once the doors shut and the lights are turned off. Today we're going to be looking at 5 abandoned amusement parks you'd never want to visit. Make sure you stay until number 1. It's a park that was abandoned even before it was officially opened. Number 5. Six Flags New Orleans. Opened in 2000 on 140 acres of land in East New Orleans, rides at the Jazzland amusement park paid homage to music and the city's heritage. It was sold 2 years later to Six Flags and opened as Six Flags New Orleans with additional rides, as well as areas with DC Comics and Looney Tunes themes. Hurricane Katrina hit the park hard in August of 2005. The property flooded and was submerged for a month in up to 7 feet of water. The prolonged exposure to salt water rendered many of the rides unsafe, and Six Flags considered the park a total loss. A handful of the rides were saved and some salvageable items were removed, and after several unsuccessful plans to redevelop the area, Six Flags was forced to vacate its lease and the property was taken over by the city in 2009. Since then, plans to reopen it as a park or an outlet mall fell through for various reasons, but several movies including Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, Jurassic World, Stolen, Deepwater Horizon, Killer Joe, and Percy Jackson's Sea of Monsters were filmed on parts of the property. Recently, urban explorers have started being allowed to explore the grounds and take photos and videos, but I don't think that's really a good idea. The property has since been overrun by fire ants, wild boars, water moccasins, and alligators, which pose a grave danger to any would-be explorer. Aside from wild animals, it seems that ghosts have taken residence in the abandoned park as well. People have reported loud bangs being heard from no apparent source. Motors of old rides have also been heard starting up all by themselves. And even if there is zero electricity in the park, lights have been known to turn on or flicker off. As of 2017, there was what seemed to be a solid plan to reopen the property as an amusement park again, a hopeful sign of recovery and growth for the area. But as of 2019, reports in the media indicate it will be demolished. Number 4. Gulliver's Kingdom, Japan. Gulliver's Kingdom, based on Jonathan Swift's story, sits in the shadow of Mount Fuji in Japan. It opened in 1997 with great optimism that it would help stimulate the local economy, but closed its doors for the last time 10 years later. The park and its 147-foot-long Lemuel Gulliver statue are now prime destinations for urban explorers. Gulliver's Kingdom was located 2.5 hours away from Tokyo and in the sights of Mount Fuji, which should have made it quite the go-to destination. However, poor ticket sales eventually forced it to close its doors forever. However, there are also other reasons being pointed out as to why this amusement park failed. Well, first off, it was built next to Japan's famous Aokigahara Forest, also known as the Suicide Forest. It has the unfortunate distinction of being a destination for people who are contemplating suicide. Since the 1950s, recorded suicides in the forest have been rising at an increasing rate of between 10 and 30 per year. In 2003, a record number of 105 suicide victims were discovered there. Japanese spiritualists believe that the suicides committed in the forest may have permeated the trees. This would then lead to them generating paranormal activity and preventing many who enter from escaping the forest depths. Each year, dozens of corpses are found by volunteers who clean the woods, but many are forever lost in the very thick woods. It has been rumored that the depressed and lonely, before finally taking their own lives in the forest, visit Gulliver's Kingdom for a last bit of fun. Secondly, it is also near the village of Kamikushiki. This is home to the doomsday cult Am Shinrikyo. If the name sounds familiar to you even though I botched it, it should, because this cult enacted one of the most gruesome chemical attacks in modern history. In March 20th, 1995, when members of the group boarded a subway train at rush hour in Tokyo while carrying concealed bags of sarin gas. The cult members punctured the bags with the tip of their umbrellas and walked off the train. Inside the subway, 13 people died and 5,500 were injured. Many of the injured still deal with the after effects to this very day. Whether or not these two factors are what directly caused Gulliver's Kingdom's failure as an amusement park, we may never know. What we do know is that it's one of the creepiest abandoned places you could ever visit. Number 3. Atlantis Marine Park, Perth, Australia. It was supposed to be Western Australia's answer to SeaWorld. Probably not a great distinction to have nowadays, but hey. A theme park built off the back of Perth's economic boom, but just 9 years after opening, it shut its doors and is now abandoned and ruined. Atlantis Marine Park sat 60 kilometers north of Perth in the small fishing town of Two Rocks. Built in 1981, it was part of an ambitious plan to build a resort and residential area called Yeoncheon Sun City, a proposed satellite city to support a population of 200,000. It was hoped that Perth's massive expansion would be matched with a growth in tourism, and even Japanese investors were brought in as financial backers. A 10-meter-tall Neptune holding his trident was built by local artist Marc-Lee Bousset, along with numerous pools and many other strange ocean-themed sculptures, including the disembodied head of Jacques Cousteau. The park was to be the first step in turning the area into a premier leisure recreation region. The park's slogan was, "Atlantis Marine Park, for the enrichment of mankind." Clearly modeling itself after SeaWorld, the park's main attraction was 7 bottlenose dolphins. These dolphins were caught in the wild, and were taught how to perform various tricks 6 months before the park's opening. They remained the park's main draw for 9 years. Atlantis Marine Park was initially a huge success, with families from West Australia and beyond flocking to the park to watch the live dolphin shows, swim in the pools, ride pedal boats, and have their obligatory photo with King Neptune. However, in 1990, just 9 years after opening, Atlantis shut its doors. Western Australia's boom never eventuated, and the 1987 stock market crash put a halt to prosperity. Atlantis closed due to financial difficulty and was left abandoned. It has since been damaged by vandals and has become overgrown and derelict. Old statues can still be found scattered throughout the grounds, as well as broken walls and concrete pools. For years, it was a no-man's land, popular with dog walkers. However, just recently, the iconic King Neptune was restored to its former glory after a petition by locals who started an online campaign for something to be done with the ruins. The mammoth statue was cleaned, sealed, and repainted. Taking 11 men and 70 liters of paint, the restoration took 2 weeks to complete. Volunteers cleared the gardens and fixed the broken fences, and the park is now open to the public on weekends. Now it's time for today's best pick. Today we're going to be looking at an abandoned theme park that, although still retains some of its former glory, is slowly being reclaimed by Mother Nature. Number 2. SPREEPARK, Berlin, Germany. The SPREEPARK in southeastern Berlin has been abandoned for the last 10 years, and it shows. Each part of the park is scattered with remnants from the previous 3 decades, making a cornucopia of weird entertainment, children's rides, and life-size dinosaur statues. Originally constructed by the communist government in East Germany in 1969 as the VEB Culture Park Plenterwald, the culty stood until the fall of the Berlin Wall 20 years later. It thrived throughout the communist era with 1.7 million visitors annually. It was taken over by Norbert Witt in 1991, renaming the park SPREEPARK. He replaced the primarily asphalted surface with a grass and water landscape. He also installed a number of rides which he bought from the insolvency of the Miropolis amusement park near Paris and moved to Berlin. Witt changed the scenery multiple times, even adding an English village. Unbeknownst to police and Berliners, Witt had also become involved in smuggling cocaine, concealing it in pieces of ride equipment shipped between Peru and Germany during his time as park administrator. Due partly to his criminal activities and due partly to lackluster visitor numbers, SPREEPARK was shut down to the public in 2002, and Witt was tried on smuggling charges 2 years later. The result of this shutdown was the amusement park, which has slowly fallen into dereliction and has been taken over by nature. The whole park was featured in the film Hana, and the main sites are prominent in the film's climax. It was also a victim of arson, twice in 2014. A number of the park's features were destroyed due to the fire, and tighter security has now been erected around it by the new owners. As of May 2019, many of the previous attractions of the park have been removed. However, the Ferris wheel and the that word, please put it on the screen, I can't pronounce it, restaurant from the culty period remain, as do the SPREEBITS roller coaster. Of course, there's also a few other things, such as the Cinema 2000, the facade of the English Village, the Cup Carousel, and the artificial rock of the Grand Canyon Wild Water ride from the Norbert Witt SPREEPARK period.
I saved the best for last, but first, I have a quick challenge that takes only 5 seconds to complete. If you can leave a like and subscribe within the next 5 seconds, you'll get 10 years of amazing luck. Just try it, it really works.
Number 1. PRIPYAT Amusement Park, Ukraine. The amusement park in Pripyat has to be one of the most iconic abandoned amusement parks in the world. Unfortunately, its fame will be forever linked to one of the world's worst disasters. It was just being set up, ready to open for the May Day celebrations in the city on the 1st of May. However, the nuclear disaster on the night of the 26th of April 1986 meant that Pripyat was empty and abandoned by the end of April. The fairground was open briefly when it was decided that a distraction was required on the morning of the 27th of April, just before the notice to evacuate was given. An incomprehensible action today given what we know now about the severity of the disaster and the levels of radiation already in the area that morning. It wasn't really ready. The Ferris wheel was still behind cladding and the paratrooper ride did not have the canopies in place, but people were excited and visited the new park. The park sits empty and lonely, staying almost exactly the same as the day the last guest left its gates. The bumper cars are where they were left, leaves blowing around the barriers. The seats on the paratrooper ride are slowly rusting away, and the Ferris wheel is fixed and fading. The yellow capsule remains as bright as they originally were in places, but the supports are orange with rust and the paint is flaking and peeling. Festive decorations still linger near the haunting rides for the planned May 1st, 1986 opening that never came. Its looming Ferris wheel has become an unsettling icon of the nuclear disaster, and visitors sometimes leave stuffed animals in its car as a memorial. The park still contains varying levels of radiation, although the concrete areas are mostly safe. The area under the Ferris wheel has some of the highest levels of radiation in the amusement park. Although still quite dangerous due to radiation, some brave urban explorers have gone exploring it, providing us with the images of what was once supposed to be one of the happiest places on the Earth. While you may not be able to visit it yourself, you can visit it virtually in a few games. Those include the original Call of Duty Modern Warfare, as well as the game Stalker: Shadow of Chernobyl. Which abandoned amusement park are you brave enough to visit? Let us know in the comments section down below. Want more videos about creepy and abandoned places? Click on any of the videos you see on the screen. As always, thanks for watching everybody, and you all have a good time.